Hey everybody, video here for you today. Now this place I learned about while making my last video on Teppe Hasanlu. This is a little more to the west. This is about 360 miles east of Göbekli Tepe, and it's right down here. Here is the ancient site of Teppe Hasanlu, or Hasanlu Tepe, or just Hasanlu. This is an ancient mound built up over time. People started living here maybe around 8,000 years ago. Seems this is like the other place, Teppe Hasanlu, I talked about a few days ago. Something devastating happened here about 2,800 years ago. People are left lying in the streets, and the place is totally overthrown and burnt, destroyed. And then a layer of archaeological finds, and they have compared it to Pompeii, are here. Artifacts and people just lying where they were killed. Archaeologists have kind of separated this into two different areas here. The high mound, and you can kind of notice the ancient circular enclosures around this high mound, as they call it. And then right down here, it's called the low mound. And here is a map, topographical map of the area. And then this picture here from overhead, probably taken more than a few years ago. Here is another map of the site with the low mound down here and then the high mound right here. It seemed to have three concentric kind of walls around it. Maybe this was, nah, I won't even go there. Here is an overhead shot of the place. Excavation work was done originally here in about 1936. Some artifacts were pulled out of here, and then it was professionally looked at between 1956 and 1974 about 10 times. Some pretty cool finds were made here. But here is a look today at some of the ruins. These are pretty unique. These columns here, those seem to be pretty unique to me when I first looked at them. Here are a few more looks at the ruins at Hasanlu Tepe. These are found near the top of the mound. But people, they say, started living here maybe around 8,000, 7,000 years ago. That early period is kind of vague, but the ruins here near the top of the mound are pretty cool. I will leave this link below. Robert H. Dyson is the one who did the excavation work here in 1958 on behalf of the University of Pennsylvania Museum. Must have been rough work here, digging these ruins out from sand in the desert. The ground gets very hard in the desert. Here's a look at an overhead shot. You get an idea of how this mound is built up. 25 meters high, that's almost 80 feet high. Still to this day, very impressive. Just reading a little further ahead, it says an exploratory trench the year before on the north slope had indicated to us the presence of large stone foundations belonging to walls which encircled the citadel, defending it from attack. Looking for these same structures on the southern side, we now cut a northerly trench from the south slope. The new operation sliced neatly through a mass of fallen, burned brickwork at its northern end and across a massive wall foundation at the other end. The foundation, built of large boulders and blocks of limestone, had once supported a high sun-dried brick foundation wall over 9 feet thick. The location of the foundation shows that the wall once encircled part, if not all, of the citadel mound. Here's another look at the excavation work that went on here in the 1950s. It says general view of the Solduz Valley looking south from Hasanlu. The foundations of the citadel walls are exposed in the foreground. Here's some more looks at the excavation work done here in the 1950s. There was many layers of occupation found here. There was one from the 4th millennium BC that was noted, even though they said human occupation starts here maybe in the 6th millennium BC. But here are some artifacts found in the burnt building coming from about 2,800 years ago. Here are some drawings of some pottery that was found here coming from about 2,900 years ago. More looks at the excavation work done here. But there seemed to be a layer frozen in time. This place got sacked. People were killed. It seems they just left the artifacts, some of them very valuable. They just left them there. There was over 7,000 artifacts found on this layer. Here is Mr. Dyson with some of the artifacts found at Hasanlu Tepe. Here is a golden bowl that was found. We will talk more about this. This, I believe, weighed about 2.5 pounds with some very interesting symbolism on it. Here is just one of the thousands of artifacts found at the site in the shape of the crescent moon, probably, inlaid with designs. There's an animal with horns. There is the figure, possibly in the posture of Orion right there. Interesting artifact. Here is another artifact, a drinking vessel in the shape of a fish, it appears. Here is a drawing of a bronze breastplate coming from a little under 3,000 years ago. A figure here with two bulls on each side. Is that a figure from history, or is that a celestial event depicted? Well, that's a good question, I think. Here is that actual bronze breastplate that was found. You can leave your comments below on what you think this depicts. Here is that golden bowl that was discovered. Weighed just under 2.5 pounds. Seems we have chariot scenes on here. A figure with, looks like horns on his head there. A winged figure. Different depictions on here, but this was found just under 3 of the victims of whatever happened 2,800 years ago when the place was destroyed. They're not sure how old this bowl is, and with a lot of the work here, there just remains a lot of unanswered questions. But the supposed mythological scenes on this golden bowl has led to a lot of debate, and this artifact is actually described as a beaker in some articles, but this is now housed in the Bestan Museum in Iran. Here's another look at that golden artifact. And what does this actually depict? Well, if people lived in this one spot going back 8,000 years, I'm sure they had a lot of stories coming from deep history. Here is an article on the Golden Bowl from 2015 from Archaeology.org. The price of plunder. The Iron Age fortified hilltop site of Hasanlu Tepe in northwest Iraq was sacked around 800 BC. Much of the chaos and destruction from that event was frozen in time until archaeologists encountered well-preserved buildings, artifacts, and even human remains in their efforts to reconstruct the ill-fated settlement's demise. The site was briefly explored in the 1930s, and then large-scale excavation took place between 1956 and 1977. It says, in 1958, the discovery of Hasanlu's most famous find, known as the Gold Bowl, brought the excavation international attention. The solid gold artifact weighs more than 2 pounds and bears remarkable decorations made by hammering the metal from both the back and the front, depicting various mythological scenes. The spectacular vessel, however, was shrouded in an air of mystery. The bowl was found crushed beneath a layer of burned debris near 3 skeletons. How did the valuable object end up there? Were these individuals rescuing it from a burning city, or were they trying to steal it? So things were found here, but it seemed to raise a lot of questions. I may have said Iraq, but this is in Iran. But one guy here, Michael Dante, Boston University archaeologist, is taking a new look at the find. It seems work here was done on a pretty sizable scale, done pretty fast. It says the original Hasanlu project produced massive amounts of data, but the speed, size, and scope of these excavations often resulted in limited documentation and publication of the material. Decades later, Dante is seeking to remedy this problem by reviewing and publishing the information. The process is providing new details about the site's destruction nearly 2,800 years ago. Whenever we re-examine a Hasanlu dataset, we find something new and exciting. The possibilities for reanalysis are incredible. And I may be talking about another site that seemed to be destroyed by some process in the upcoming days with an interview guest. But it says Hasanlu developed into a significant commercial and production center during the early Iron Age, roughly starting around 1400 BC, and that was its latest stage of development, owing its location on an important trade and communications route between Mesopotamia and Anatolia. The citadel at the center of the settlement contained an array of monumental buildings, including palaces, temples, and large multi-columned halls. It says the evidence Dante is studying confirms that the citadel met with a violent end. Many buildings were ransacked and burned, which caused them to collapse. In addition, the remains of more than 250 people were uncovered, some with signs of systematic execution. The horrific level of violence evident in the archaeological record left a mark on everyone who excavated the citadel. Hasanlu's destruction level makes it a giant 9th century BC crime scene. It says, according to Dante's analysis of the gold bowl's contents, the valuable object was in the process of being looted by enemy combatants. The 3 soldiers who, based on their military equipment and personnel ornaments, probably hailed from the Urartu region north of Iran in modern Armenia, were in the process of plundering a wealthy multi-story complex as the citadel burned. They located the bowl and other valuables in a second-story storeroom. As they fled with their prize, the mud brick building suddenly collapsed. The invaders were hurled to the floor below, where they were crushed by debris and lay buried side by side, thieves and their trophy for nearly 3 millennia. I found this one very interesting to look into. People lived here for about 6,000 years, and in the latest layer, it seems something very bad happened around 2,900 years ago. People still laying in the streets in the spot where they died thousands of years ago. Very interesting. Here are depictions on that golden bowl. How far back does the documented knowledge go? That is interesting. Here is that golden bowl crumpled. Here is that golden bowl upon discovery in 1958. Just imagine 63 years ago, just digging out in the desert, and you find an artifact that weighs over 2.5 pounds, depictions on it, and made of gold. Here's a couple victims of the attack, whatever happened here 2,800 years ago. These are called the Hasanlu lovers. They just lay here for 2,800 years ago until they were excavated. Here are some more looks at the excavation work that went on here 60, 70 years ago. That is a video on Hasanlu Tepe, a place that seems to go way back in history. How much did they know here? How much knowledge was preserved? Did they have knowledge of these people coming to this area a long time ago? That's a good question. But a golden artifact here found, very interesting, a lot of cool symbolism on it. Just thought I would do that one today. I read about this place when I did my video on Hisar Tepe a few days ago, so I thought I would talk about that tonight. Hope you thought that was interesting, and you all have a very nice day.